Can you believe we're already at week 16 of the NFL season? I don't know how this week is going to top the week we experienced last week. And me personally, I think week 15 was the most chaotic NFL weekend that I have ever witnessed. We saw lots of thrilling finishes, lots of games came down to the wire. The Vikings completed the largest comeback in NFL history, being down 33 to nothing at halftime against the Colts. The Patriots and the Raiders. That ending was probably one of the most shameful endings that I have ever witnessed. In fact, maybe it might be the most shameful ending I've ever witnessed. In fact, the largest margin of victory this past weekend was 12 points, and that was the Monday Night Football game, the final game of the week. And this week we have NFL action pretty much all weekend long. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, the Jaguars and the Jets, and that matchup is a lot better than what I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year. We've got Christmas Eve action. We have the Raiders and the Steelers in prime time on Christmas Eve. We have 3 Christmas Day games, and we have the Chargers and the Colts on Monday Night Football to wrap up Christmas weekend. Last week I went 11-5 in my picks. 3 out of the last 4 weeks have been my best weeks of the year, and I'm hoping that continues. So without further ado, let's get to the Week 16 NFL predictions. We are kicking things off with TNF between the Jaguars and the Jets. Now, believe it or not, this may be one of the better TNF matchups of the year. We not only have 2 teams that have been exceeding season expectations, not only do we have 2 teams that still have playoff hopes, but this matchup features the top 2 picks in the 2021 NFL Draft, as it has been announced that Mike White has not been cleared yet with his ribs injury. So Zach Wilson will get the start for the Jets. The Jets are coming off of a heartbreaking loss to the Lions on a missed game-winning field goal opportunity by Greg Zuerlein, while the Jaguars are coming off an emotional victory against the Cowboys, being down 17 points in the second half to win it in overtime, off of a pick 6. Which I told you the Jaguars are going to beat the Cowboys. That was my trap game of the week. And congratulations to anybody that won money off of that by listening to that powerful advice I had. Now, despite the Jaguars going on the road off an emotional victory, I'm going with the quarterback that has been better all season long. Zach Wilson even got benched at one point. Zach Wilson's only starting right now because Mike White is injured. The Jaguars, they're the more confident team right now, coming off of 2 impressive wins against playoff contenders in the Titans and Cowboys. And I think the Jaguars, despite it being a shortened week, despite this being a road game, I think the Jaguars, they pull off the win, and this game is essentially a pick-em right now, but the Jets are a 1-point favorite. I would imagine that this could go back to an even line, if not shift things more in Jacksonville's favor by Thursday night. But I'm going with Jacksonville to, right now, pull off the upset in what is pretty much a pick'em game right now. Up next, the first of many Christmas Eve games, the Bills and the Bears. The Bills are coming off of a game-winning field goal at the Horn against the Dolphins, while the Bears, last week, they had the Eagles on the ropes, but the Eagles, they found a way to win that game. And something tells me that the Bears are going to once again have a legitimate Super Bowl contender on the ropes. I think the Bills, they do win this game, but I think the Bears cover in this. And the reason why I think the Bears cover in this, by the way, the line is Buffalo at -9. I think they cover because the Bills defense, I've said it time and time again throughout the last month and a half, this Bills defense has not looked that impressive to me. In fact, the Bills defense is the weakest point in their team. And the Bears, they have the offense led by Justin Fields to make this a game, to have this game competitive from start to finish. I think the Bills win, but it's only going to be by 3 points. I think the Bills only win by a field goal. Their defense hasn't looked that impressive to me. In fact, in their last 6 games, I think the Bills' defense has only really been impressive to me one time. So Buffalo wins, but Bears cover. Saints and Browns. And this was a game that I was back and forth on throughout the last 24 hours. 1 hour, I think the Saints are going to win. The next hour, I think the Browns are going to win. But with the weather report for this game, potential snow and lots of wind, this game script is going to be heavily run favored. And I'm going to go with who I think is going to run the football better in this game. And I think that is going to be the Browns. The Browns offense has been completely anemic since Deshaun Watson took over as the starting quarterback. And part of that is because he hasn't played competitive football in over 2 years. But also that he's been distracted, facing harassment, facing harassive chants. But this past week at home, there was really no excuse for him facing harassment as he was in front of his home crowd. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some Browns fans that do not agree with Deshaun Watson being on their roster, but the harassive chants and comments should have been limited. And I honestly expected the Browns to have their best performance under Deshaun Watson, but that was not the case. Only a 13-3 win against the Ravens without Lamar Jackson. And if Lamar Jackson is there, I'm convinced the Ravens probably win that game by at least 10 points. But I think the Browns win this week behind a better running performance in this game, better O-line, better running game than Nick Chubb. I expect Nick Chubb and Kamara to both have good days, but I think Chubb is going to be a little bit better, and that's going to be the difference in the game. Browns win, but it's going to be really a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be in the neighborhood of maybe 17-13. I don't see a lot of throwing in this game. I think it's going to be more ground-heavy, but a Browns win is what the game will end up being, in my opinion. This matchup may get a little interesting. The Texans and the Titans. Despite the Texans having the worst record in the NFL, they have impressed me the last couple of weeks. They have had 2 contenders on the ropes in the last 2 weeks in the Cowboys and Chiefs. And I really could see it being a possibility that they could once again have a contender on the ropes in the Titans. But here's why. I don't think the Texans will win this week or at least cover the spread. And the simple answer is Derrick Henry. In the last 4 matchups between these two teams, Derrick Henry, well, at least the last 4 matchups Derrick Henry has played against the Texans, Derrick Henry has had over 200 rushing yards. The Texans, they have the worst run defense in the league. And I just think there's going to be a miraculous performance from Derrick Henry incoming. I'm talking over 200 plus rushing yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns, and Derrick Henry has a dominant performance against the Texans once again. But with the way this season has been, with the way the Texans have played the last couple of weeks, I don't know, something could give in this game. Maybe the Texans, they're going to be selling the box the entire game, just waiting for Derrick Henry. But as history does tend to repeat itself, I am picking the Titans to win. Up next, we have the Seahawks and the Chiefs, and welcome to your trap game of the week for Week 16. Not necessarily because I think the Seahawks are going to win and pull off the upset, but for 4 reasons. One, with the current line. The line is currently Kansas City minus 9.5. So we're looking for the Chiefs to win by double digits, and they've only done that 1 time in the last 5 weeks. Number 2, the Seahawks are more rested up for this matchup than the Chiefs. The Seahawks played Thursday night last week, while the Chiefs, they had to play overtime against the Texans, the team with the worst record in the NFL. 3, depending on which Seahawks team, more particularly the defense, shows up for this game, I think the Seahawks, they could have a chance to pull off this upset. If we see the Seahawks defense show up that played last week, I think there's a chance they pull off this upset and win outright. Not only cover, but win outright. As the Seahawks defense, yes, they did break early on, but they did hold their own throughout most of the game. While the Chiefs, their defense has really been lethargic the majority of the season. I've seen Chiefs fans want Steve Spagnuolo fired. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs to win this game. I do think that this is going to be a shootout. I expect a high-scoring game. I think the Chiefs win, but I think the Seahawks cover. Up next, we have the Giants and the Vikings. The Giants are coming off a thrilling win on Sunday night against the Commanders, while the Vikings are coming off of the largest comeback in NFL history, going down 33-0 at the half, and then outscoring the Colts 39-3 in the second half and overtime. And I believe Justin Jefferson is a little under 350 receiving yards away from breaking the record for most receiving yards in a single season, and he's got 3 more games. Although he is designated as questionable for right now for the matchup, there's no doubt in my mind that he plays in this game. If he left the game temporarily and came back, I think there's no reason why he doesn't play. Plus, I really think he wants to set that record, even though the majority of players, they're not all about the accolades. They're more about the team morale and team victory and team performance. But I'm going with Justin Jefferson to have another big day for the Vikings as he gets closer and closer to that all-time receiving record, which I do think he's getting there. The question is, will it take 2 more games or will it take all 3 remaining games? The Giants, despite me saying at the beginning of the year that they have the potential of being an underrated team, last week I thought they'd lose the Commanders, but that was a very tight game, as was almost every single game. I just feel like that this is going to be, surprisingly, believe it or not, a close matchup. I really don't see this being a blowout in either way, shape, or form, as both defenses aren't that good. The Giants' defense is a bit more underrated, but I just think that Vikings offense is going to be just too much in this matchup. Up next, we have the Bengals and the Patriots. And the Bengals, they are on right now, I believe, a 6-game winning streak. While the Patriots, they are coming off of what I felt like was the most shameful ending that I have personally seen. Instead of playing for overtime, they try the Cal and Stanford band play, and Chandler Jones just intercepts it and just completely throws Mac Jones to the ground, running in for the game-winning touchdown. And I do not know how the Patriots are going to bounce back from that. I mean, they are back at home this week, but they're against one of the hottest teams in the league, if not the hottest team in the league, in the Bengals. And I think the Bengals, they're going to come out and win this game. They're confident after going down 17-0 against Tom Brady and the Bucs last week to completely annihilate them in the second half. I just think this is that point where we're starting to see the Bengals from last year show up. They struggled at the beginning portion of the year, but the Bengals, they just keep getting better and better every single week. And I'm not going to pick against the Bengals this week. I'm picking the Bengals to win and ultimately decimate the Patriots' playoff hopes. Up next, we have the Lions and the Panthers. And I did not think I would be saying this in Week 16, back in Week 3 and 4 and 5, that both the Lions and the Panthers still have playoff hopes. The Panthers, by being in the NFC South, the worst division in the NFL, and the Lions, as they are hot. The Bengals and Lions, those are the 2 hottest teams in the league right now. The only loss the Lions have had during this stretch is a game-winning field goal against the Bills on Thanksgiving. And that was a game the Lions, they could have won. And the Lions, I think they could win out. Believe it or not, I think they could. And I think the Lions, they will win this week. the Panthers, they have been impressing me in the second half of the year, and they've been playing much better since firing Matt Rule. But I'm going to pick the Lions to win another game, and the Lions, they inch closer and closer to a playoff berth. As the Lions, I think they're turning into America's team at this point. I don't think I've seen one person say they don't want to see the Lions in the playoffs. As I think the Lions making the playoffs, that would be a very powerful story for this NFL season. In what has been maybe the craziest NFL season we have seen in a while, if not ever, for the Lions to make the playoffs, that would be something. And I do not know, I don't think anybody knows how the Lions running game is going to work. Is DeAndre Swift, as we are getting closer and closer down the stretch, is he going to get the majority of the touches? How many touches will Jamal Williams steal from DeAndre Swift? And for the Panthers, Sam Darnold at quarterback. DJ Moore has been a lot better with Sam Darnold. As these last 3 games, it is a prove yourself moment for Sam Darnold. If the Panthers, if they win their remaining 3 games, win the NFC South, maybe that saves Sam Darnold's career. Or the Panthers end up looking elsewhere for quarterbacks anyway in the offseason. But I think the Lions win, but I think just like the Jaguars and Jets, this might be one of the biggest games of the week. One of the best games of the week. Moving on to the Falcons and the Ravens, and this game is not going to be a good game whatsoever. We have seen some bright spots of the Falcons this season. Tyler Algier had a big performance last week. I believe 139 rushing yards against the Saints. While the Ravens, it's unknown if Lamar Jackson will come back this week, or will it be Tyler Huntley? Tyler Huntley cannot get a win for the Ravens, even if he plays really well. The last 2 seasons, when Tyler Huntley is forced into action, the Ravens, they just seem to struggle. While the Falcons, Desmond Ridder makes his second career start, as Desmond Ridder did not really look that well in his debut, but at the same time, it's rare to see somebody do well in their debut. I think the Ravens, they win this game behind a big performance by J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins is coming off the IR. He has had a couple big performances for the Ravens. Even though the Ravens, they have wound up on the losing end, I think this is the week where the Ravens, they do finally get back on the winning track. As the Falcons, this is probably one of the easiest opponents you can face when you're needing a win. The Falcons, they're a get-right team because they make you get right because of how well you dominate against them. Up next, we have the Commanders and the 49ers. The Commanders are coming off of a heartbreaking loss to the Giants on Sunday Night Football. They should have had the opportunity to tie the game up and send it to overtime potentially, but Terry McLaurin apparently did not line up correctly, even though the official told Terry McLaurin multiple times that he was lined up correctly. McLaurin confirmed this in his post-game interview, and the fact that the official said that he was lined up correctly multiple times and they still called illegal formation on him anyway, it once again adds to the question of, is the NFL rigged or not? It just adds more speculation and more uncertainty if the NFL is or not rigged. But that is another topic for another day. We now look towards the Commanders matchup against the 49ers, who I keep saying every week are the biggest threat in the NFC, the biggest threat for the Eagles in the NFC. The team that you don't want to face the later on the season goes. And for the Commanders, coming off the heartbreaking loss, how are they going to recover from this? But the Commanders, they did go on the road earlier in the year to take down the Eagles for the Eagles' only loss of the season. Now, this 49ers defense, it may be one of the best in the league, but they do have a tendency to really give up yards, give up points on occasion. But Brock Purdy, the third-string quarterback for the 49ers. Who would have thought that in Week 16, Brock Purdy would be the starting quarterback for this 49ers team? I most certainly did not. And boy, is that decision to draft him as Mr. Irrelevant is paying off. And I think the 49ers, they win this again behind Brock Purdy, another solid game for him. managing the game really well, running game with Christian McCaffrey. I expect him to have a big day. As the Commanders, they gave up a lot to Barkley last week. And that 49ers defense. I'm picking the 49ers to win this one. I would not be surprised if the 49ers, they won this by more than 20 points. Up next, we have the Eagles and the Cowboys, and there are major concerns in the Eagles camp right now as quarterback Jalen Hurts did suffer a shoulder injury in the game last week against the Bears. His status is uncertain, but head coach Nick Sirianni has not counted out Jalen Hurts starting this game. So either Jalen Hurts or Gardner Minshew is going to start the game for the Eagles this Saturday. Well, the Cowboys, they're coming off of an overtime loss to the Jaguars. Now, this is another potential trap game here because the line opened up for the Cowboys to be a 1.5 point favorite. And the line has now shifted to Tuesday afternoon to Cowboys minus 5.5. Majorly because of the Jalen Hurts news. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter to me if Jalen Hurts is going to be in or out. I still think the Eagles, they are going to win this game and beat the Cowboys and pull off the quote-unquote upset, even though this shouldn't be an upset, as the Eagles are only a one-loss team, the team with the best record in the NFL. I think that A.J. Brown still has a good game. I think A.J. Brown is one of those receivers that is matchup-proof. The Eagles' defense, even though their run defense is their weakest point on their team, I still think they can contain Zeke and Tony Pollard really well in this matchup. Now, there were several factors in this matchup the first time around that will not be taking place in the second. In the first matchup, Jalen Hurts was fully healthy. Dak Prescott was not in the game. Neither was Dalton Schultz. And Dalton Schultz and Dak, they're a pretty solid connection, although they haven't really connected as much in recent weeks as I necessarily expected them to at the beginning of the year. But I still think the Eagles, they win this game, and whether it's going to be Jalen Hurts or Gardner Minshew, even though over the years I have said that Gardner Minshew is overrated, and the only reason why people like him is because of his mustache, I think Gardner Minshew has the ability to win this game if he is called upon. So I'm going with the Eagles to beat the Cowboys in what should not be an upset, but according to Vegas will be. Now I'm going to just speed through the last few games here because these are going to be, probably in my opinion, the least interesting games of the week. Other than this one, I think this game is going to be really interesting. Primetime Christmas Eve night, the Raiders and the Steelers, the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Catch. Now this game is calling for snow, snow, and snow. So this game, just like the Saints and the Browns, it's going to be a heavily run-favored game. I think it comes down to which team runs the football better. I think that's going to go to Josh Jacobs and the Raiders. Despite Najee Harris playing one of his better games of the year last week, I just think that the Steelers' lack of offensive line, well, both teams don't have the best offensive lines in the league at all, but Josh Jacobs has been the better running back all season long among Jacobs and Harris for this matchup. And I think the Raiders, the second half of the year for them, they have been a much different team. So I'm going with the Raiders. Packers and Dolphins, the first of 3 Christmas Day games. The Packers, they still have playoff hopes, but they have to win out. And the Dolphins. And I'm going with the Dolphins to win this one and end the Packers' playoff hopes, as Aaron Rodgers does not do well in the state of Florida. We've seen that time and time again throughout his career. The state of Florida, for some reason, not the best place for Aaron Rodgers, especially when the Packers' season is on the line. So I'm going with the Dolphins. Tua has been underrated all season long. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they are too fast for just about anybody. And the Dolphins, they win this matchup and the Packers' playoff hopes. Broncos and Rams, and this game, I just have to pick somebody. This is probably the worst game that you could probably feature. 2 of the worst scoring offenses in the league. I'm just going to pick the Broncos. I literally flipped a coin, and I just ended on the Broncos. So I'm going with the Broncos. Really, no particular reason, just for the sole fact I had to pick somebody. Up next, we have the Bucks and the Cardinals. Now, despite their lackluster performance in the second half last week against the Bengals, the first half against the Bengals last week, I think that was the best first half we've seen out of the Bucks all season long. Now they go on the road to the Cardinals to take on a Cardinals team that their season is over. They are eliminated from playoff contention. Kyler Murray's out for the year. And I just think Tom Brady smells blood on the water. I think we're going to see the best Bucks performance of the entire season. So I think the Bucks will play a complete game from start to finish, and they'll dominate this game. And finally, Monday Night Football, the Chargers and the Colts. And I'm going to pick the Chargers. It's not anticipated that Jonathan Taylor will play again this season. The Colts are coming off of the worst loss in the history of their franchise. In fact, worst loss in NFL history, being up 33-0 at the half, which I've talked about already maybe 4 times. So no need to talk about it again. I don't think the Colts recover from this. I just think the Colts, they just need to look forward to next season. They just got to shut down Jonathan Taylor for the year. And I'm going with the Chargers. And that will do it for my Week 16 NFL predictions. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the NFL this weekend and have a very Merry Christmas.